Man, you guys don't know how long I waited to make this video. Like, guys, I was doing the research about this, guys. Like, I went back and actually watched like a lot of Ilia Topuria's fights, and I noticed something that I know other people didn't talk about. Like, people have made videos about this. People told me, okay, I seen Lucas Tracy's quote video on it. I seen MMA Shay made a video on this. Guys, no one's talking about the right things. Now, there's things I'm going to cover in this video about the reason I believe Topuria actually lost to Gaethje. And let's just say this, and this is going to shock some people. Justin Gaethje stylistically might just be better than Ilia Topuria. Now, we're going to get into that in this video, guys. Like, I swear to God, I was actually about to make another video about Alex Pereira, because if you guys didn't know, he just tried to get an appeal, or he's trying actively to appeal the fight result and get it overturned. Like, I've never seen Cope this bad. I got to be honest, we've seen so much eye pokes, now I'm going to be waiting for Izzy to appeal the fight against Amalo, like, I'm waiting for all these fighters that ever got poked in the head, hit behind the head, to start appealing fights. Bro, this is not boxing, bro. Go home and take that loss like a man. Oh man, thinking about it is gonna get me mad, and it has nothing to do with this video. So let me stay on track, because I almost didn't make this video, which would have pissed me off. I had to make one more Pereira video, because I made like 2 videos of him in the last 2 days. I'm kind of done talking about Pereira. Just hearing his name disgusts me. I'm gonna be cooking on my Twitter. That's about it. As for Ilia Topuria, I actually wanted, before I talk about the real reason I believe that Topuria lost to Gaethje, because there was a couple reasons. There wasn't just one concrete reason. I actually want to talk about how Ilia Topuria is handling the loss, and I feel like he's taking this loss as a champ, guys. Right after his fight, the first response we got from him was an Instagram post, and in that Instagram post, he literally gave Justin Gaethje credit. Alex Pereira, I hope you're taking notes. He said that Gaethje pretty much did exactly what he said he was going to do, and he left a mark on his face. Like, he not only gave him credit, he gave him praise almost. And I was like, it was almost like weird, guys. You know what, Topuria, it's like, he's such a cocky person, naturally. Like, he's such a confident person. Whatever you want to call it, confident, cocky. I think it was kind of right in the line of cocky, because, like, it wasn't, I don't want to say God complex, but like, it was almost the way he acted. Like, it was almost like he kind of needed this to happen, guys. He was kind of going in there and saying like, oh, now I'm really mad, so now I'm really gonna hurt you, bro. Like, that whole thing about like, yeah, when he was talking to Charles, like, I'm sorry it had to be you. Like, when he says things like that, it's like aura, yeah, but it's like, damn, bro. Like, this is the one time you're like, all right, fuck it, now I'm really gonna hurt you, and then you nearly die in there. All right, bro, let me chill. Because it actually was a good fight. I'm gonna talk about it later, but I gotta say, he's taking the loss as a champ. I actually heard like other things coming out, that like the first conversation he had like with him and his team was like, were the people at least entertained? Like, it seems like he's a people's man, bro. Like, it seems like he cared about people just being entertained. I'm just saying, for Topuria taking the loss this well, I gotta applaud it, and I'm very impressed. It's weird to be impressed about someone taking a loss well, though, in 2026, but we're at the point where we see people like Alex Pereira who don't know how to take a loss for shit, and we're actually going to talk about it. He's like, Pereira was crying about illegal shots. Justin Gaethje did do some illegal things in this fight against Ilia Topuria, and Ilia Topuria hasn't mentioned it, and nor do I think he should mention it, because it's a little bit stupid. Honestly, leave it to Topuria fans, which we're about to talk about right now, because they've been coping through the roof, and I gotta address this fan cope. First of all, the something in the gloves narrative, go to hell. No, actually, go to hell with that, guys. Oh my, guys, the worst cope of all time I think I've heard in my life was, there's something in Justin Gaethje's gloves. Because like, the damage that it like accumulated on Ilia's face, I literally can't believe the first thing they thought, yeah man, something in the gloves. That one's blowing me, I'm not gonna lie. Like, some of the, when you hear cope, it's kind of funny. This is like up there with the lucky jab of Alex. Okay, no, maybe that was a little bit worse, because that was 4K, we all saw that, but like, it's just funny, the narrative they're writing about, oh, there might be something in the glove of Justin Gaethje, because Justin Gaethje has never caused damage like this. It's like, have they ever watched a Justin Gaethje fight? I guess with that thing, I'm like confused. Like, have you never seen Justin Gaethje fight and how his opponent's faces look like after the fight? The fact that whole something in the glove narrative actually came into light, it just made me realize that maybe 99% of fans are casuals and just never watched the sport, which is the case. This is the White House card. You guys got to remember, if you're seeing like big viral tweets that have millions of views, and it's like someone saying that something as stupid as like, there must have been something in the guy's gloves, it's probably their first UFC event. They probably never seen damage like that, so they're probably just saying like, oh, by default, I heard this Spanish guy was good and he lost to this underdog, there's got to be something in his gloves. How about I put fucking brass knuckles on and punch you in the face, and I'll show you the difference, bro. Justin Gaethje does this to all his opponents. That's stupid. Now, the second thing, the eye poke, there actually was some eye pokes, and Justin Gaethje, I gotta say, guys, he's very notorious for like landing eye pokes in fights. He did catch Ilia Topuria with the thumb in the eye in the 4th round. He also caught Ilia with like an uppercut that people were saying was a thumb in the eye. Guys, that was just a clean uppercut. It happened early in the first round, and actually that's actually what averted his vision and started closing his eyes early. Was it a poke or was it a thumb, modified thumb uppercut? No, it was just an uppercut from what I saw. There's no angle that would have told me that that was a thumb to the eye. There was a legitimate thumb to the eye, but that was already in the fourth round. I gotta say that was pretty shitty though. Like when he eye poked Topuria, I had it 2-2, but I know it would have been 3-1 because I actually gave the first round to Ilia, but I was one of the few. But based on the judges' scorecard, that still would have been 3-1. But in the fourth round, seemingly that was like important for Ilia to keep rallying. And I actually do think Ilia was going to stay in that fight and fight his way through it, you know. I don't think Ilia ever showed that he was going to give up and wilt outside of like his eyes closing. I do think his eyes closing had a lot to do with why he lost the fight. I did say that in my initial recap. If his eyes weren't if his vision wasn't adverted that much and he could see, he wouldn't be throwing as much looping punches and the kind of the things he was doing towards the later end of the round. But yeah, this one was a weird one. There was eye pokes, but Justin Gaethje is known for eye pokes. It actually very similar to the Cyril Gane situation, except if this was Pereira in this situation, he would have probably appealed it. Pereira would have probably got appealed. So this is the only cope I see from fans that like have some kind of validity to it. But outside of that, the cope has been like embarrassing for the supportive fans. There's something in the gloves narrative just needs to go to hell, and like every other thing you guys are saying, like, oh man, I think he was throwing the fight up. Just walk away. Just walk away and just keep out. Like this is like this fan base sucks. I gotta say, and I'm an Ilia fan, but I'm not a part of like the delusional fan base. Like I separate myself from like the idiots when I see fans like that. Like has nothing to do with me. I still support Ilia, and definitely after the way Ilia took the loss, I am even a bigger fan, you know. And honestly, Ilia's still really good. And this was a hard fight for him. But now let's get into the reasons I believe Ilia Topuria actually lost this fight. Keep in mind, I watched back the fight a couple times, you know, a lot of times actually. And on top of watching it back, I went back and watched back Ilia's fights. Because like I said, I didn't do my 100+ hours of footage and like research on this fight because I didn't think I needed to. But I'm telling you right now, if I did, I would have picked Justin Gaethje. I know it sounds like, oh, you're just saying that, but trust me, guys, there are habits I'm going to talk about that I feel like Justin Gaethje, of course, could have exploited. And now seeing it firsthand, of course, is easier to say it in retrospect. But let's get into some of the things. First, I want to start off with the main reason that everyone's talking about. You see Lucas talking about it, you see Shay. Ego, guys, in the underestimation. Like, he underestimated him due to his ego. He was too dismissive prior, guys. The way he was saying, all right, well, now I'm really going to make you pay for it. Like, he was too dismissive, almost to the point where, like, he believed in himself so much, which is not a bad thing to do. But he started believing himself so much that he started dismissing the person in front of him and didn't see him as a real threat. Like, I remember him talking about the Justin Gaethje Patty fight, and he was like, look how he fought so sloppy, so bad. Like, how is he going to, like, last with a technician like me? He was way too dismissive, right? And that kind of led to him not respecting the power, which was so dumb. I can't believe he didn't respect the power. I can't believe he didn't see the receipts of Khabib, Charles, Dustin, every single person who's fought Justin Gaethje, Tony Ferguson. They all say the same thing, and it's not coincidental. Keep in mind, Dustin has been there with people like Conor, like one punch power, like guys, Khabib has been in there with some like heavy hitters as well, like Conor, and he's been hit clean by them and some of these other guys. Guys, but everyone has the same conclusion. This guy hits like a truck, you know, and the fact that that's the case, and like Ilia Topuria still was so dismissive of like, I don't care, and he still fought very similar to how he's fighting. And I was going to say this, guys, looking back at it, Ilia Topuria had to fight a bit different. He couldn't have fought the way he usually fought, guys. And on top of all that, guys, he chased the finish abnormally. Ilia Topuria also always kind of has a high guard and like trudges forward. But one thing I have noticed from Ilia, he doesn't chase the finish that much. Ilia does something when he's pressuring where you'll throw and you kind of leap back and like comfortably out of distance and won't be so inclined of exchanging early on, especially. Like the first round, he does that a lot. Like later in the fight, I do notice sometimes he'll sit down and his punches more, but that's after evading and making some calculations. I've noticed in this fight, he was chasing the finish to like a weird extent where like he would try to sit down on every single combo, and he was trying to just take the big shots of Justin Gaethje and keep moving forward in hopes that Justin Gaethje will get caught by one of his straight punches or one of his looping overhands. And Gaethje was getting caught, don't get me wrong. And Gaethje almost did get finished, it looked like, towards the end of that first round, in my opinion. But he chased it too much, so I feel like he blew out his load more than he usually does. He did throw more strikes in this first round than he threw in any other of his fights, but it wasn't by that much. It actually wasn't by that much at all. Actually, looking at his strike stats, because I was wondering if he punched himself out, I looked at every one of his fights. No. Like, the amount of strikes he threw in the first 2-3 rounds wasn't that abnormal than what he usually does. So I gotta say, it did shock me how much he chased that finish in the first. I do think that led to him like kind of blowing out his gas, because I will say the punches he threw did seem to have more significance than the usual punches he throws in the first round. And I also think, guys, I didn't put it on the slide, but I think he took too much from the Charles Oliveira fight, seeing what he did to Charles Oliveira, because Charles Oliveira fights a bit different. Charles Oliveira walks forward with like no defense attached, and I feel like everyone knows that who watches Charles. Like he kind of walks forward and always gets dropped. Did it against Islam, Dustin Gaethje, now Ilia. But the thing is, when Ilia caught him clean, he just didn't have time to drop and just get on his back. He just nearly died in there. That's what happened. So I feel like he took too much stock from the Charles fight and was like, I think Justin Gaethje is going to be the same way. But Justin never really showed to fight that dumb. Like Justin Gaethje is very sporadic in his defense. He doesn't lean the same way. And he's kind of awkward defensively, but he's never showed the same stupid defensive paralysis as Charles Oliveira. So I do think he took some from that fight. So the overall ego definitely was a big factor of why Ilia Topuria lost his fight, because he did too much trying to chase the first round finish. But that's not the only reason, guys. I gotta say this, and this is a point that no other people aren't bringing up. Strangely, a stylistic nightmare. After watching back a lot of his fights, it's it's so strange how he is. Justin Gaethje, and how much of the pros of Justin Gaethje actually happens to be cons for Ilia Topuria. First and foremost, I want to say the habits Topuria do, Gaethje exploited really nice. Specifically, the clinch uppercut. Like I've noticed, Topuria does get in these weird instances where he is trading pretty good, but when he is in the clinch, he doesn't really do much. We haven't seen much of him in the clinch, but we've seen him always kind of duck down his head when he's exiting. And I've noticed that in a lot of his habits, and I know Justin Gaethje loves to grab the back of people's head and throw uppercuts. That's something Justin Gaethje always does. And it took me too long to figure out that habit of Topuria putting his head down and leaning out. I just never really considered, because like I said, I didn't watch footage. I was just thinking Ilia was going to do what he said and kind of walk forward. But Ilia does exit with his head always down, and Justin Gaethje is someone who could exploit that with an uppercut. And Justin Gaethje's uppercut is one of his best weapons. Like that uppercut and hook he usually throws, he caught Khabib clean with it. Which goes back to my narrative that guys, Khabib is so good, his chin is so good, and his scar tissue is he's never bled in the ring. He's the only one Justin Gaethje hasn't made bleed. Fun fact, Justin Gaethje has made all his opponents bleed and see their blood. And Justin Gaethje wanted to make Khabib see his blood, but couldn't do it. He definitely made Topuria see his blood and see nothing. He made Topuria see nothing as well as see his blood. It was violent, but that clinch uppercut that I underestimated and didn't really think about played a big factor in this fight, and that makes a lot of sense. Secondly, Topuria's always getting jabbed up, guys. If you look at any Topuria fight, you're gonna see him getting jabbed up. A lot of his fights he got jabbed up. Volkanovski was controlling him with that jab. The only difference is Volk would jab him and then kind of do the same predictable movement where you jab and move back with his chin in the air. Gaethje mixes up his movement a lot more. He moves a little bit more laterally, and he sporadically defends and ducks his head after jabs, and sometimes he follows up with a 1-2. I'll say a lot of Topuria's opponents don't follow up with 1-2s. Why? They're scared of the counter. Gaethje was doing something where after he was jabbing him up, he got to the point he was just sticking to the jab, and it was landing. And then Topuria was only going to expect a jab and then start walking forward and try to find his combos. And then the first time Gaethje threw a jab into an overhand or a jab into a 1-2, it landed flush. And that's the first thing that rocked Topuria, and it kind of changed the way the trajectory of the fight. Because before that, I thought it was 2-0, but people could argue it was 1-1 after a really solid second round where Topuria showed great grappling. But that 1-2, that changed everything. It seemed like after that, the momentum was all towards, more so towards Gaethje than any other rounds. I will say, when he followed up, Topuria's not used to that. He's used to people jabbing him and kind of exiting and running away because they're so scared of what's coming back. Gaethje decided to sit there and fight, which actually caught me off guard. I thought Gaethje was going to low kick and run, but it caught me off guard to the point where it's oh my God, Gaethje's one of the people who actually went in there to fight. He wasn't scared of what was coming back. He wanted war. And I feel like him being a war thriver, which is my second point, and Topuria not, was a big part of this. Topuria's always been the hammer for the most part. The Josh Emmett fight, he has won 5 rounds, but in that 5-round fight, he was the hammer the whole fight. He wasn't really the nail. Times he was the nail, you could say he was the nail against Volkanovski, but was he really the nail? Volkanovski was outpointing him in the first round, but he wasn't landing anything with significant value. He was kind of just jabbing and running away, like I said, and low kicking sometimes, and throwing a lot of kicks because he didn't want to exchange. Max Holloway, he was sometimes getting caught, guys, but Max Holloway wasn't really sitting down in his punches the way Justin Gaethje was, and it kind of goes back to my whole narrative that Justin Gaethje hits crazily hard, way harder than an average person, and he's sitting down on his punches a lot more. So that's why I feel like he hasn't been in a war, honestly. And it seemed like with Max Holloway, he was getting caught clean by Topuria, and it was only a matter of time because he was doing the same thing where he'd back up in a straight line. Gaethje was one of the few people who wouldn't just back up. He would make it ugly, and even if Gaethje mixed it, he would start the war by just entering the clinch. And Topuria isn't someone who's been in the clinch a lot and like had these ugly brawls in the clinch. A lot of Topuria's combos comes from him initiating everything and kind of being from on the outside, entering on the inside, then throwing his combos and kind of just exiting if he needs to. He hasn't really been in somewhere where he has to get in the clinch and throw uppercuts and make it ugly. And Gaethje's the worst person to be the first one to try that out against. But I will say there's sometimes that Topuria was swinging in the clinch, but it just seemed like when Gaethje would land in the clinch, it'd just be a little bit more like heavy and thudding to an extent, I will say, because sometimes to the body, Topuria was very violent, but it just seemed to me that like Gaethje had that uppercut timing in the clinch and kind of figured out the flaws that Topuria has when ducking down his head when he does enter the clinch. So that was big. And I did say there was some glimpses of Ilia fatiguing in the Zalal fight. And in that fight, let's be real, he was the hammer the whole time, and it was very low output. Not a lot of strikes were thrown in that fight. It was a lot of there was some wrestling in that fight, but there were not a lot of strikes thrown. And to be fair, Topuria isn't accustomed to wrestling too much. He did wrestle in this fight as well, which could be actually a reason to why it fatigued him a bit more, because he was wrestling as well as using a lot of volume. But like this Zalal fight did show me he was able to get fatigued. And in this fight, he didn't fully fatigue, but you could see when he started slowing down and started throwing less punches, and that's when Justin Gaethje started getting a lot more comfortable in his jab. So this is why a rematch is tough to pick. And I know Gaethje's still like, I think he's a minus 500 or minus 250 or something in the rematch if it was to happen. And those odds don't make sense because when you think about it, guys, this is just a really hard stylistic fight for Gaethje. Now I'm going to say this and then I throw people off. Ilia Topuria can still beat Arman Tsarukyan. And I could dare say comfortably to an extent. And I could say that. And it's not going to be crazy to say that. And matter of fact, I remember directly after the fight, I'm like, oh my God, Arman could beat this guy. Then I thought about it. I was like, no, Justin Gaethje stylistically is just a really weird fight for him. And he could probably make it hard for a rematch. I actually think, thinking back at this fight and watching it back a couple of times, I looked at the way Ilia would scramble when Justin Gaethje even tried to attempt late, a wrestling attempt late. I looked at the way Ilia Topuria was moving and transitioning in the grappling positions. Guys, I don't think Arman beats Topuria anymore, which sounds weird and sounds like I'm kind of going against what I would believe, but I think styles make fights, and I don't think Arman could start a war and make shit ugly for Topuria to the point where he'd be so fatigued. And I do think Ilia's sprawling and scrambling looks really good. I don't know how great. Of course, Gaethje's not the GOAT, but what I've seen from him against Charles on the ground, it seems like he transitions through positions really well on the bottom or on the top when he has someone on the bottom, and he showed that against Gaethje. He was getting to full mount really well, and he was landing shots. He was doing a lot, so I don't think Ilia actually loses to a lot of people in 155, but I do think Justin Gaethje stylistically is just strangely one of those people, despite not looking better than him on paper, who could always make it an ugly fight and put him in that situation, you know. So I don't think a rematch is easy to pick. I think Ilia Topuria could beat a lot of 155ers. I just think Justin Gaethje specifically is a stylistic nightmare that no one wants to seem to address, you know. I do think I want to still say though, Ilia is good. Ilia, like, who else in 155 beats Ilia? I couldn't say confidently. I could maybe say maybe Arman, but like I said, I got to do more research on that. But from what I've seen in the Gaethje fight, watching that back, actually that fight, what it made me feel was like Topuria is beatable when you put him in like a war situation, but the only other people could do that, like Dustin Poirier, who are retired, you know, and you know, not much people at 155 in my opinion. And Paddy would get killed. Guys, do not get it twisted. Paddy with the shit, like Paddy would get obliterated. Paddy's not great at war starting, you know, at all. Like Paddy thrives in wars against Jared Gordon where he loses. Like that's a whole different story. You know, like that's different. You know, I think Ilia beats Charles in a rematch. I think Ilia beats all these other guys like Paddy. Are you kidding me? I think he beats BSD very comfortably as well. Like BSD's shown chin ability. BSD's shown chin ability against Dustin and stuff. Like, don't confuse this fight with like Ilia's not great. I want people to know that stylistically, Justin just might be his nightmare. And I want to say, like, picking a rematch is not easy. And that kind of brings you to a next narrative about Justin Gaethje that I want to address about this fight that kind of made me a bit uncomfortable. Gaethje's chin was good, and it was weird.
On that right side.
Oh, clean right hand.
Like, Gaethje ate what I think are fight-ending shots to the head, not just to the body. Yes, he almost got rid of him to the body, I believe, in the second or first, but that wasn't it was like he was landing like the 1-1-2s, like those heavy hooks, those heavy crosses, and Gaethje would eat him. For some reason, at one time, like a couple times Gaethje wobbled, I swear it was just from a jab. And then the big shots that like Ilia landed from the 1-1-2s, the huge hooks, looping power, Gaethje ate them, which was weird to me. It really was weird to me. People are talking about something with the gloves. Nigga, was something in his head? Let me check his head, because Gaethje's chin, well, to be fair, Gaethje never really got colded before. I remember when Dustin finished him, he was still like trying to shoot a single leg on Dustin when that happened. And I bet if that fight continued for some reason, Gaethje just wouldn't have get cold. He probably would have just kept getting dropped and, got back up. I see Gaethje get dropped a lot of times. I know Charles dropped him, then jumped on a submission to finish him, but it's actually rare that I've noticed that Gaethje got put out cold outside of the Max Holloway fight, where it's 25 minutes down, or 24 minutes and 58 seconds down, and he was standing there and brawling with someone. When you're already that tired and like you're taking that chance and you're brawling with someone who's so much faster, yes, you can get slept, especially later on in the fight when you have like less cardio. But it's very rare that we actually saw Justin Gaethje get slept outside of that. I'm sure if he did that against Ilia Topuria, just putting at the ground, no clinching, just did that, he would have got knocked out. But it seemed like when Topuria was even setting it up nice, Gaethje just ate shots abnormally well, like better than he's ever ate it. Like, so that's something that was a bit weird to me, that kind of made me realize, like, what the hell? Like, if Gaethje's chin was like looked like how it looked like in other fights, he would have got slept very early as well. Like, everything Ilia Topuria said would have came into fruition. That was probably a weird situation for Ilia, when Ilia was hitting him with everything he had, and Gaethje was still there, and was still making it ugly. Some people would take those shots from Ilia, and then they would start going on the defensive, and they start being like a little bit overwhelmed now. Like, oh shit, I can't take that shot again. Let me start circling. Let me start running. Gaethje said, fuck that. I'm going to just stand in front of you and start trading. So that was a bit weird. I do think Gaethje's chin was abnormally good. And I do think like abnormally good more so than usual. So I do think that's one of those things that I actually need to point out, because that's a big reason why Gaethje won that no one's really even mentioning. No one's mentioning how Gaethje's chin looked better than he's ever looked in his entire life. And I think that's something worth mentioning, because I think that's something that was fight altering and led to Topuria even being in this war in the first place. Topuria might not be used to wars, but he didn't really need to be one, hypothetically speaking, before the fight, because we thought that if Ilia Topuria lands cleanly on him, he's gonna fucking get slept. Like, just like Charles, like we've seen Charles before Ilia get dropped a lot of times, but never hit by someone like Ilia. And the first time Ilia hit him, Charles fucking got slept like bad. I think we thought it was going to be the same with Gaethje, where like we see him getting dropped and wobbled and doing the chicken dance a lot, but he always kind of gets up. But it's going to be different when Ilia does it. But Ilia did it, and it just wasn't that much of a difference, I was a bit weird. I don't know if Ilia Topuria said he had the best camp of his life, so I don't really know. I think I'm gonna leave it at just crediting Justin Gaethje's chin, because his chin seemed really good for this fight. That's all I gotta say. And lastly, I guess I gotta say this was a needed humbling. I think Ilia's going to come back better. I got to say, he's got to come back better. But I think this was needed. I think he was in a point where he felt too good, and he almost seemed like he was just above everyone else to a bad extent. So I feel like he needed this humbling kind of just to wake him up and let him know, like, listen, anything's possible, bro. You need good fight IQ, because him chasing the finish, I do think his fight IQ played into it, but I don't know if I could call it fight IQ or ego. I think a crazy ego could lead to bad fight IQ. I actually don't think Ilia Topuria has bad fight IQ. I don't think so. I know people are saying his fight IQ is shit. I think his ego is what led to him in this fight specifically having worse fight IQ than usual. Ilia usually is good at like maybe losing first rounds like he does. Like when he lost the first round or like had a close first round, it wasn't that abnormal to me. It's usually that Ilia picks up on habits mid-fights and then starts to chain together combos so he could start to like get the person when they're doing this habit. For example, with Volkanovski, we knew Volk was leaning back, so he just like, all right, I can't throw I'm gonna throw this 3-piece combo and then I'm gonna follow up after that and keep throwing and see if I can land something. That's when he caught Volk. Same with Max Holloway. He saw Max Holloway leaning back and he's like, the first time he chained together that elongated combo, he was able to land on him. Justin Gaethje would do something where he dips. I was thinking he's gonna chain together something. Wait, look how Justin Gaethje reacts and follow up together and chain together again. But he never really did any of that. So that's what I was kind of waiting for with him. But it seemed like with him, he was just so insistent on like, eventually I'm going to crumble you and I'm going to chase you down and you're going to try to just jab me, but that's not going to work. But I got to say, Gaethje did a good job, like explode that. The uppercut in the first round, the very first round that landed, that like averted his vision, that was huge. That was huge, man. I think that was also fight altering in a way. But I got to say, without that, I don't know. Like, it would have been a tough fight. I do think Gaethje needed to compromise the eyes, and needed to stay on that jab to win. And that's exactly what he did. And Topuria, to lose, he needed to not respect the power and needed to keep coming forward and not take his time and make reads. He didn't make reads. The whole time, there was no reads that were being made. That's abnormal for Topuria. So this was a needed humbling. He's going to learn from this man. And the way he's taking the loss shows me that he's going to be progressive in his learning. And he's going to actually try to learn. If he took this loss, said, I'm going to rebuke, I'm going to fucking, appeal this shit, bro. I got poked in the eye with the thumb. If he did all that, then I'm like, all right, nigga, pack it up. I'll be like, all right, bro, pack your bags and hit the haystack. You're not ever going to improve. But he's showing me that he wants to improve. He's showing me that he's humble in defeat, which is something you love to see from a fighter who's very cocky. We've seen Conor lose when he got a broken leg. We've seen some of these other guys who are cocky and can't take a loss well. You know, we've seen Pereira right now. This guy shows me that he's ready to improve. I like Topuria, guys, and I still will. And I still think he beats a lot of people at 155. I actually, funnily enough, I just think he's a stylistic nightmare, or Justin Gaethje was a stylistic nightmare for him. I know people are going to disagree with me. I know a lot of Arman fans are going to be like, nah, Arman's going to cook him because Arman's going to do it. You know, but I oddly enough think that Justin Gaethje might have just been the better fighter out of the two from a stylistic standpoint to an extent. But then again, Justin Gaethje needed that good chin. You know, there's some stylistic flaws that both guys can exploit, but it's just a very close fight every single time they fight. You know, it comes down to if Ilia could capitalize on a finishing sequence. For example, when he hurt him to the body, guys, he kind of fell into him and got into like a grappling position trying to ground and pound. If he was more like Sean O'Malley and was like kind of still standing trying to get some follow-up shots, he would have finished him there. I got to be on. He would have finished him there. That, like, Gaethje looked like he was almost out of it. Him getting on top of him started landing to the face and stuff where, you know, he just gave him time to recover because Gaethje could just hold you at that point. Don't fully commit to that. There were some subtle mistakes that Ilia Topuria made that literally cost him this fight. So I do think stylistically Justin Gaethje's hard, and I do think a rematch is tough to pick, but objectively Ilia Topuria is still better than Justin Gaethje in my opinion. And objectively Ilia Topuria is still one of the most talented fighters in the world. It sucked that this had to happen, actually. I was a bit mixed about him winning or losing. You know, it's cool in a sense. I kind of feel for him though. It was cool to see Gaethje have something crazy like this, but I wanted Topuria to get Gaethje, I can't lie. And I do think Topuria is going to be back. So I don't think turning your back on Topuria and saying he sucks is the right thing to do. I see a lot of people saying, oh, he's overrated anyways, and he would have lost to Islam and all this stuff. I still think Islam beats him. You know, I think Islam beats him. I still think it's close. I still think if Islam cuts to 155 to fight him, I don't think he'd win. I think if Islam never left 155, stayed there, he would have won. You know, I think if they go up to 170, I would lean Islam. But there's still some shots that Justin Gaethje took that I'm like, okay, maybe Islam can take, but you know, it wouldn't be easy. So I think Topuria is still one of the best fighters in the world. I do think people are still giving him too much slack. You know, I think he's good, and I think you're going to see a better version of him. And I do think he might beat Gaethje in a rematch, but I do want people to understand stylistically, Gaethje is just not a walk in the park for Ilia Topuria. But let me know your thoughts down below. Let me know what you guys think about this whole situation. I always wanted to talk about this, guys. I had to get a video out just kind of talking about this whole situation, like from Ilia Topuria taking the loss well to his fucking fans coping like fucking idiots, to Topuria and Gaethje actually being a tougher fight to call than we all anticipated. But let me know your thoughts down below. Is that this for me? Oh, God bless. 2, 3.